In 1986, over 40 million Americans visited amusement parks that no longer exist. Your school bus pulled into parking lots that are now strip malls, condos, and empty fields where weeds push through cracked asphalt. Number 14 on this list drew more visitors than Yellowstone. Number 7 hosted the field trip every kid in the tri-state area begged for, and it was gone before they turned 20. Number 1 was so beloved that grown adults stood at the fence and cried when the bulldozers came. These were not obscure roadside stops. These were the places that defined your childhood: the permission slip, the brown bag lunch, the buddy system. Here are 30 field trip destinations every kid who grew up in the 1980s remembers that are now closed forever. Number 30, the local newspaper printing press. Every fourth grader in America made this trip at least once. You filed into a concrete building that smelled like ink and machine oil, and a man in a short-sleeved dress shirt walked your class past enormous rolls of newsprint, each one taller than your teacher. The press room was deafening. Papers flew through rollers at impossible speed, folding themselves into the morning edition right before your eyes. You got a free copy with your class photo circled in red marker. By 2020, over 2,500 newspapers in America had shut down entirely. The buildings were sold. The presses were scrapped for metal. The entire industry that once anchored a reliable Tuesday field trip simply vanished. No more newsprint smell. No more watching the Sunday comics roll off the line in 4 colors. That mechanical thunder is gone, and nothing replaced it. Number 29, prehistoric forest in Irish Hills, Michigan. Concrete dinosaurs lined a winding trail through the woods of southern Michigan, and for kids in the 1980s, it was as close to Jurassic Park as reality could offer. A brontosaurus stood 40 feet tall between the oaks. A tyrannosaurus bared painted teeth at children who screamed and grabbed their mother's hand. The park opened in 1963 and charged around $4 for admission through the 1980s. School groups arrived by the busload every spring, but attendance declined through the 1990s. The paint chipped, the concrete cracked. By 2002, the gates were locked for good. The dinosaurs still stand in those woods, overgrown with vines, staring at nothing. A brontosaurus with a tree growing through its neck. That is what remains of your third grade field trip. Number 28, Showbiz Pizza Place. Before Chuck E. Cheese swallowed it whole, Showbiz Pizza was the undisputed king of the birthday party field trip. The Rock-a-Fire Explosion, an animatronic band featuring a gorilla named Fats and a bear named Billy Bob, performed on a stage surrounded by flashing lights, while children screamed over skee-ball and pepperoni. At its peak in 1983, Showbiz operated over 200 locations across 38 states. A teacher could bring 30 kids and spend almost nothing while the robots sang country covers at full volume. By 1992, every Showbiz had been converted to Chuck E. Cheese, or shuttered. The Rock-a-Fire characters were ripped from their stages and warehoused. One fan in Alabama bought a full set and films them performing modern songs in his living room. That is the afterlife of your 6th birthday. Somewhere between 2nd and 4th grade, your school loaded you onto a bus and drove you to a working dairy farm, where a man in rubber boots explained pasteurization, while you stood downwind of 200 cows. You watched a milking machine attached to an udder and tried not to gag. They handed you a tiny carton of chocolate milk at the end, and it was the best chocolate milk you ever tasted because it was free. In 1980, there were approximately 334,000 dairy farms in the United States. By 2022, that number had dropped below 25,000. The small family operations that hosted school groups could not compete with industrial agriculture. The red barns were torn down. The pastures were subdivided. Your field trip destination became a housing development called Meadow Creek Estates. Nestled in the Ozark Mountains, Dogpatch, USA, opened in 1968 as a theme park based on Al Cap's Lil Abner comic strip. By the 1980s, it featured a trout farm, a blacksmith shop, hillside rides, and actors dressed as Daisy May wandering through fake Appalachian storefronts. Schools from 3 states made the drive. Kids panned for gems in a wooden sluice and ate funnel cakes the size of their heads. The park struggled through ownership changes and closed for good in 1997. The buildings rotted in the mountain air. Vandals stripped the copper. The trout pond went green with algae. Dogpatch as you knew it is gone, buried under kudzu and nostalgia. Number 25, Circus World in Haines City, Florida. Ringling Brothers built this one, a theme park dedicated entirely to the circus arts, and for Florida kids in the 1980s, it was the field trip that smelled like popcorn, sawdust, and elephant. Live trapeze artists performed overhead, while clowns worked the crowd below. You could ride an actual elephant for $2. The park opened in 1974 and drew over 1 million visitors a year through the early 1980s. But competition from Disney and Universal crushed it, and attendance fell. They rebranded it as Boardwalk and Baseball in 1987, adding a spring training angle. That lasted 3 years. By 1990, the gates closed permanently. The land was cleared, and an industrial park sits there now. Not a single tent pole remains. The greatest show on Earth could not survive the greatest theme park market on Earth. Number 24, Rocky Point Park, Warwick, Rhode Island. For over a century, Rocky Point was where New England went to ride roller coasters and eat shore dinners. The dinner hall seated 3,500 people at once, serving clam cakes and chowder family style on long communal tables. Schools booked end-of-the-year trips decades in advance. A ride bracelet cost under $10 in the mid-'80s. The corkscrew coaster terrified a generation. The park declared bankruptcy in 1995. The rides were auctioned off piece by piece. The shore dinner hall was demolished in 2000. Rhode Island turned the land into a state park. You can walk the grounds now, but all you will find is grass where the Midway used to be. First pattern break. Here is something nobody talks about. The factory tour used to be the backbone of the American school field trip, and almost every single one is gone. Coca-Cola bottling plants, Wonder Bread bakeries, regional candy companies, and the local ice cream dairy all used to open their doors to school groups. You walked single file past conveyor belts, wearing a paper hat, watching bottles get filled, and at the end they gave you a free sample. By the early 2000s, liability insurance, corporate consolidation, and food safety regulations killed the factory tour entirely. The buildings were automated, the workers were reduced. An entire category of field trip that taught kids how things were actually made disappeared so quietly that most people never noticed. Number 22, Discovery Zone. Discovery Zone was the indoor playground empire that made every kid in America lose their mind between 1990 and 1999. Enormous ball pits, foam obstacle courses, spiral tube slides 3 stories tall, and a noise level that could be measured from the parking lot. Schools booked Discovery Zone for reward trips. At its peak, the chain operated over 300 locations. Then the lawsuits started. Kids broke arms. A ball pit was found to contain hypodermic needles. The company filed for bankruptcy in 1999. Every single location closed. The buildings were gutted and turned into furniture stores and gyms. The ball pits were drained into dumpsters. An entire generation's favorite indoor destination vanished in under 3 years. Number 21. Opryland, USA in Nashville, Tennessee. Opryland was not just a theme park. It was a musical institution with roller coasters, live country music shows, and the Wabash Cannonball coaster that rattled your teeth loose. Schools from across the Southeast booked spring trips. You rode the chaos, watched a bluegrass band in an open-air amphitheater, and ate a turkey leg bigger than your forearm. The park drew 2.5 million visitors in its final year. Then Gaylord Entertainment decided a shopping mall would make more money. In 1997, they bulldozed the entire park and built the Opry Mills Mall on top of it. A TJ Maxx sits where the Wabash Cannonball once screamed. Nashville chose retail square footage over roller coasters. and an entire generation still has not forgiven them. Pontchartrain Beach in New Orleans, Louisiana. The Zephyr roller coaster was the heartbeat of this lakefront amusement park, and every kid in New Orleans rode it at least once before they turned 12. Pontchartrain Beach opened in 1928, and by the 1980s, it was running on fumes and living on its legacy. The bumper cars threw sparks when they collided. Admission was cheap. The corn dogs were legendary, but rising insurance costs and competition pushed it toward the edge. The park closed in 1983. The Zephyr was dismantled. The lakefront was redeveloped. 30 years of New Orleans childhoods were paved over, and the only evidence that remains is a stone marker near the old entrance and the tattoos people got of the Zephyr logo to prove they were there. Number 19, the local planetarium. Not the big city ones that survived. The small-town planetariums inside community colleges and science centers ran a single projector in a room seating 80 people. Your teacher marched your class inside, told everyone to sit still, and the lights went out. A man with a deep voice narrated the constellations while a Zeiss projector hummed and painted stars across the domed ceiling. You fell asleep. Your best friend fell asleep, but for 5 minutes before you dozed off, you genuinely believed you were floating in space. Hundreds of these small planetariums closed between 1990 and 2015, victims of budget cuts and aging equipment. A replacement projector cost upwards of $500,000. The domes went dark. The stars disappeared from the ceiling. Number 18, Marineland of Florida, St. Augustine. Marineland was America's first oceanarium. It opened in 1938, and it pioneered the concept of watching marine life through underwater windows. By the 1980s, it was a staple of Florida school field trips. Dolphins performed on cue. Divers hand-fed sharks while children pressed their faces to the glass. At its peak, the park attracted 500,000 visitors a year. Then SeaWorld happened. Disney expanded, and the interstates rerouted traffic. Marineland filed for bankruptcy in 1998. The park was stripped down and eventually reopened as a tiny dolphin encounter. The grand oceanarium your class visited, with its curved Art Deco windows and stadium seating, is gone. The building still stands, crumbling against the Atlantic salt air. Number 17, Kittyland, Melrose Park, Illinois. Kittyland opened in 1929 and survived the Depression, 2 world wars, and 6 decades of Chicago weather. For generations of Illinois kids, it was the first amusement park they ever visited. The Little Dipper coaster was gentle enough for a 5-year-old. The carousel played calliope music that drifted across the parking lot. Schools booked Kittyland for kindergarten graduation trips. The whole place ran on innocence, noise, and cotton candy. By 2009, rising property taxes and a family dispute over the land forced a sale. The park closed that October. A Costco opened on the site. The carousel was auctioned off. 80 years of first roller coaster rides, first funnel cakes, and first screams of joy were bulldozed for bulk paper towels and rotisserie chickens. Chicago never quite got over it. Number 16, Heritage USA in Fort Mill, South Carolina. This one is the strangest entry on the list. Heritage USA was a Christian theme park and residential community built by televangelists Jim and Tammy Faye Backer. By 1986, it was the 3rd most visited attraction in America, behind only Disneyland and Walt Disney World. 6 million visitors a year. It had a water park, a hotel, campgrounds, and live religious programming. Schools from church networks booked trips by the hundreds. Then Jim Backer's financial fraud and personal misconduct unraveled in 1987, and the empire collapsed. The park closed. The hotel sat abandoned for decades, its grand atrium filling with mold and rainwater. Heritage USA became a ghost town with a baptismal pool. Second pattern break. Here is what people forget about the 1980s field trip. It was not just entertainment, it was education disguised as fun. Teachers knew that a kid who spent 3 hours at a bottling plant or a natural history museum absorbed more than a month of textbook reading. The permission slip was a contract that said, "We are going to show your child something real, something they can touch and smell and hear." Then liability culture killed it. one lawsuit at a time, one insurance premium at a time. Field trips did not die because kids stopped caring. They died because adults got scared. Number 14, Geauga Lake, Aurora, Ohio. Geauga Lake started as a swimming hole in the 1880s and grew into one of Ohio's most beloved amusement parks. By the mid-80s, it had roller coasters, a massive wave pool, and enough rides to fill a full school day. Cedar Fair bought it in 2001, then reversed course and started stripping it for parts. The Big Dipper coaster, a wooden legend from 1925, was demolished. By 2007, the entire property was closed and cleared. 80 years of Ohio childhood memories were erased for an industrial development that still has not materialized. The empty lots sit there, flat and featureless, as if Geauga Lake never existed at all. Number 13, Bell's Amusement Park, Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Zingo wooden coaster was the crown jewel of Bell's, a family-owned park that operated at the Tulsa State Fairgrounds for over 50 years. The Phantasmagoria dark ride terrified generations of Oklahoma children with its black light monsters and sudden drops. Schools booked Bell's for spring outings. A wristband cost under $10. The park ran lean and honest, a family operation in every sense. But a lease dispute with the Tulsa County Fairgrounds Trust forced Bell's to close in 2006. The Zingo was demolished. The Phantasmagoria was gutted. The land was absorbed into the fairgrounds parking infrastructure. Tulsa still argues about it. Bumper stickers still appear on cars around the city saying, "Bring back Bell's." But Bell's is not coming back. The concrete has already been poured over the memories. There were several Santa's Village parks across the country, from Dundee, Illinois, to Jefferson, New Hampshire, to Skyforest, California. Each featured a North Pole theme with a live Santa Claus, reindeer pens, candy cane architecture, and rides for children under 10. Schools took kindergarten classes in December. You sat on Santa's lap, received a candy cane, and rode a miniature train through fake snow. The Illinois location closed in 2006. The California one shut down in 1998. The era when a small, gentle theme park could survive on charm alone ended when insurance premiums tripled and parents started expecting Disney-level production values from a place that charged $6 admission. Number 11, Old Chicago in Bolingbrook, Illinois. Old Chicago was an indoor amusement park built inside a shopping mall, and it was exactly as insane as that sounds. Opened in 1975, it featured roller coasters, a Ferris wheel, bumper cars, and carnival rides, all under a massive climate-controlled roof. In the winter, Chicago area schools used it for field trips because the weather could not cancel the fun. A balcony food court overlooked the Midway. The noise was extraordinary. The ventilation was questionable. Financial problems plagued the operation from the start. The park portion closed in 1980, barely 5 years after opening. The mall limped on before being demolished entirely in 1986. The concept of an indoor amusement park inside a shopping mall was either 20 years ahead of its time or simply a terrible idea. Nobody has figured out which. Number 10, Boblo Island, Detroit, Michigan. Two steamships, SS Sticlair and SS Columbia, carried families across the Detroit River to Boblo Island, a Canadian amusement park that somehow belonged entirely to Detroit's identity. The boat ride was half the experience. Children hung over the railings watching the river churn, while parents bought hot dogs on the upper deck. The island had a dance pavilion, a wooden roller coaster called the Nightmare, and acres of picnic grounds where schools held annual outings. Attendance declined through the 80s. The park closed in 1993. Luxury condominiums now stand where the Scrambler once spun. The SS Esteclair was scrapped. Detroit lost its island, its boats, and the river crossing that felt like sailing into a dream. Number 9, Miracle Strip, amusement park, Panama City Beach, Florida. The Starliner roller coaster was one of the finest wooden coasters in the southeastern United States, and it anchored Miracle Strip for over 4 decades. The park sat directly on the beach, a rarity even in Florida. You could ride Dante's Inferno, walk 50 feet, and put your toes in the Gulf of Mexico. Schools from Alabama, Georgia, and the Florida Panhandle made Miracle Strip the default end-of-year reward trip. A wristband cost $8. The park closed in 2004 after the land became too valuable for rides. The Starliner was dismantled with plans for relocation. Those plans fell through. The coaster was destroyed. A condominium tower now stands on the beach where Miracle Strip once lit up the night. Before every hotel in Orlando had its own water park, Wet 'n Wild was the water park. Opened in 1977, it sat on International Drive and drew millions of visitors a year through the 80s and the 90s. Schools across Central Florida booked it for end-of-year blowouts. The Black Hole was a fully enclosed tube slide in complete darkness. The surge guaranteed someone in your group would lose their swimsuit top. Universal Studios bought the park in 1998 and closed it in 2016 to build a hotel. 39 years of sunburned chlorine eyes and screaming down fiberglass slides ended with a wrecking ball. The Black Hole is a parking garage. Number 7, Mystery Funhouse, Orlando, Florida. This one was pure 1980s chaos. Mystery Funhouse was a walk-through attraction on International Drive featuring mirror mazes, moving floors, wizard-themed rooms, and a miniature golf course shaped like a starship. A giant wizard statue guarded the entrance. Schools booked it because it was cheap and lasted exactly 90 minutes, the perfect field trip window. The interior was dark, loud, and slightly terrifying for anyone under 11. The whole complex closed in 2001 as Orlando's tourist corridor moved further south. The wizard statue was removed. The building was stripped and repurposed. Nothing about the current structure suggests that thousands of children once wandered through its tilted hallways, screaming at their own reflections. Number 6, Paragon Park in Hull, Massachusetts. The giant coaster at Paragon Park was built in 1917, and it kept running full speed through the 1980s. Boston area schools made the trip to Nantasket Beach every spring, loading kids onto a wooden coaster that shook, rattled, and felt like it might collapse at any moment, which was exactly the appeal. The park had a carousel from 1928, bumper cars, and a Midway that smelled like fried dough and salt water. Paragon closed in 1985 after decades of declining attendance. The giant coaster was dismantled and reassembled at a park in Maryland. The carousel was saved and relocated. The rest was demolished and condominiums replaced the Midway. Nantasket Beach is still there, but the screams that once carried across the sand belong to a generation that now explains to their grandchildren what a proper wooden coaster felt like. Third pattern break. Here is the pattern nobody wants to acknowledge. Almost every park on this list was replaced by condominiums, a shopping center, or a parking lot. The land was always worth more than the memories, and entire communities lost the one place where every kid, regardless of income, could spend a day being a kid. A field trip cost a school maybe $4 per student. That bought a full day of joy and a bus ride home, where every kid fell asleep with cotton candy on their face. No app replicates that. No screen replaces it. Number 4, Six Flags Astro World, Houston, Texas. Astro World opened in 1968 and became the heartbeat of Houston summers. The Texas Cyclone was modeled after the Coney Island original and considered one of the greatest wooden coasters ever built. Thunder River pioneered the River Rapids ride concept. Schools from across southeast Texas booked end-of-year trips. Admission was $14 in 1985. The park drew over 2 million visitors annually. Then Six Flags decided the 57-acre lot was worth more empty than full. They closed Astro World on October 30th, 2005, demolished everything, and turned the land into overflow parking for the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. Rapper Travis Scott named his 2018 album after the park, saying they took Astroworld away from Houston. The pedestrian bridge that once connected the parking lot to the entrance still stands, its lampposts rusting, leading to nothing but an empty field. Cypress Gardens in Winter Haven, Florida, was Florida's premier attraction before Orlando became the theme park capital of the world. Southern belles in hoop skirts posed among botanical gardens, while water ski shows launched performers 30 feet into the air. Schools from across Florida made annual trips. The park opened in 1936, and for decades it was the image the entire state used to sell itself to tourists. But Disney, Universal, and SeaWorld siphoned the crowds. Cypress Gardens changed ownership 5 times, and each new buyer tried rebranding. Nothing worked. The park closed for the last time in 2009. Legoland, Florida, bought the property and built over it, preserving only the original botanical gardens. The water ski show, the bells, and the quiet elegance that once defined Florida tourism are gone. Number 2. Libertyland, Memphis, Tennessee. Libertyland was Memphis's hometown amusement park, built on the city fairgrounds in 1976 as a bicentennial celebration and kept alive by sheer civic pride for 3 decades. The Zippin' Pippin, a wooden roller coaster from 1923, was reportedly Elvis Presley's favorite ride. Schools booked Libertyland for spring field trips. A wristband cost under $10. The Revolution was a looping steel coaster that turned kids upside down and sent them back to class unable to think straight for the rest of the week. Memphis could not sustain it. Attendance dwindled, and the city closed Libertyland in 2005. The Zippin' Pippin was sold to a park in Wisconsin, the only ride to escape. Everything else was demolished. The fairgrounds sit partially empty now, the subject of redevelopment plans that never quite come together. Memphis lost Elvis's favorite roller coaster, and that might be the saddest sentence in this entire script. Number 1. Action Park, Vernon, New Jersey. There has never been anything like Action Park, and there never will be again. Opened in 1978 in the mountains of northern New Jersey, it was the most dangerous, most thrilling, most unregulated amusement park in American history. The Alpine Slide sent riders down a concrete track on a wheeled cart with a handbrake that barely worked. The Cannonball Loop was a fully enclosed water slide with a vertical loop, and it was closed more often than it was open. The tidal wave pool was nicknamed the Grave Pool by the lifeguards who worked it. 6 people died at the park between 1978 and 1996. Dozens more were hospitalized every summer, and kids loved it. Parents drove their children there by the thousands every weekend. The park closed in 1996 after mounting lawsuits and insurance nightmares. It reopened briefly under a different name, but the original Action Park, the one where you signed a waiver and genuinely feared for your safety while having the best day of your life, is gone forever. New Jersey kids who survived it wear it like a badge of honor. You did not just visit Action Park, you lived through it. Across all 30 entries, from the humble newspaper press tour that opened our list to the legendary Action Park at number 1, these lost destinations share a single truth. They were the places where childhood happened outside the classroom, where a permission slip was a golden ticket and a brown bag lunch was the price of admission to a day you would never forget. Some were demolished for shopping malls, others were bulldozed for condos, a few simply rotted in place, but every single one left a mark on the kids who walked through those gates. Drop the name of your lost field trip in the comments, and if you survived the Alpine Slide at Action Park, hit subscribe. We are not done counting down what America lost.